Hey, what's up guys? My name is Matt and this is my Tippmann X7 Phenom. It really is a great performing gun, and today I'll show you how to disassemble it and perform basic maintenance that I recommend you do after each and every day of play. Of course you don't have to, but to keep it performing, as the name implies, phenomenally, it's pretty highly recommended. You want to make sure your hopper's off, you want to make sure the barrel is out. And shameless plug here, this is a Pathogen 2 14-inch quote-unquote sniper barrel available from hustlepaintball.com. It's a great shooting barrel and the customer service is just completely out of this world. You want to make sure that your gun has no air in it. Put it into a firing mode, fire it a couple times, there's no air in it. Next we're going to go ahead and remove the back plate. Now I use a stock, so it screws into place and I have this small nut on the back. So if you're like me and you're on a stock, you want to go ahead and remove that. Now a lot of people don't have many problems with this gun. I had a couple issues with chopping. The first day I actually went out and extensively played with it. It was an 8-hour play day and I had maybe 5 or 6 chops, and I had to disassemble it and clean out the gun each and every time. Really cut into the play time and made it a little bit more fun of a day, but those issues have hereby been resolved. So now we have either our 2 push pins or our screw removed, and if you're like me, again, you have the screw in the nut, you want to go ahead and thread the nut onto the screw just so you don't lose it, and set that off to your side. From there the back plate will just come right off. Set that off to your side. We're going to go ahead and remove this push pin that's in front of the electronical firing mode on the lower half of the receiver. Just flip the gun over and under the piston housing, push it forward. From there you can just lift it up and put it off to the side. From there you can remove the trigger guard, or rather the lower receiver. Now this hose right here that brings the air through the gun, which remove the ugly steel braid line, you want to make sure that these 2 O-rings are decently lubed. You want to make sure that they're not over lubed, but they don't need a lot, but you don't want to skimp, really. You just want to make sure that they're performing at their peak. So go ahead and clean out any paint, dust, dirt, debris, anything. From there, lube up these 2 O-rings and set the lower receiver off to your side. Now, we're going to go ahead and remove this small pin right up here in the front. And to do that, you're going to take a small Allen key, or rather a flathead screwdriver. Works a lot better. Pry that up and take it out. This is what holds the flex valve in its place steady. From the back, you're going to go ahead and remove your cyclone hose from the little keyhole here. Just pull it straight out and your internals will slide out without a hitch. Bolt, flex valve, and your spring. You want to make sure that there's no paint on this. Absolutely none. If you see any small spots of paint, you want to wipe it down completely and use your favorite lubrication to completely re-lube it, to keep it performing at its optimal performance. Now I have already previously lubed this, so I don't have to do that, but you would just take a small amount of lube, rub it on there liberally, and that's pretty much it. First off, we're going to remove the cyclone feed. To do that, take the larger of the 2 Allen keys provided and go ahead and unscrew it from the front. That'll just fall out, and with the hose disconnected from the valve, you can go ahead and pop that right off. Set the upper receiver off to the side for now. As you can see, these paddles, there's 2 paddles, they're held in place by the screw at the top. You want to go ahead and remove that screw first. Underneath that screw is a small metal washer, and you definitely don't want to lose that. So what I do is I dump out the metal washer and I place it over top the screw. Set that off to the side so I won't lose it. You can remove the upper paddle, and I like to take a flathead screwdriver and kind of pry up a little bit underneath the bottom paddle. It helps remove it a little bit easier. And set those off to the side. From here, you want to make sure that there's no paint in here, no dirt, no dust, no grime from the day's play. These Q-tips are very, very helpful for cleaning out the inside around the edges in this small hole down here and around the moving arm. If you chop a ball and there's paint in this area, each and every ball that goes through it will get excess paint on it, and that's going to make it shoot all wonky. It's very terrible, and you definitely want to make sure this is absolutely 100% clean before moving on to the next step. The next part is, as you can see on the underside, you flip it over and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 small screws. You want to go ahead and remove those screws, and each time you replace these screws, each time you put them back in, you definitely want to make sure that you don't torque them down too much, because if you're doing this maintenance on a routine basis, you know, after, let's say you go out to the field every weekend and after each day of playing, like I do, you go ahead and completely pull apart your gun and make sure everything is completely up to snuff. Well, if you over tighten these, they really are going to be a pain whenever you have to redo it. So these don't have to be torqued down too bad. Just want to make sure that they're in there nice and secure. Alright, now that we have those 4 screws out, let's go ahead and remove those. Set them off to the side. The back plate will come off. I like to take a flathead screwdriver and place it above the piston but below the back cap and just kind of nudge it up. The back cap will come off like such. And from here, you definitely want to make sure that there's no paint in any of these moving parts. We're going to remove this small spring that goes at an angle. We want to remove the nut from its housing and then gently lift up on the arm. You can, as said in another video, run these under some water and make sure that they're completely dry before reassembling it. I find you don't really need to do that. If you see any paint in here, which again is a very common occurrence if a ball break happens, you want to make sure it's clean, and once again, Q-tips are just magnificent for reaching all these little crevices that you typically wouldn't be able to reach inside of the arm housing right here and just all around the outer edges. Now that that's done, we can go ahead and reassemble it. Some people ask, do you need to put grease in here? And honestly, it's up to you. You definitely want to put a couple drops of gun oil if you're doing very high rates of fire, like this thing can do 13 balls per second on the full auto. And if you're doing that, you know, every other trigger pull, you definitely want to go ahead and lube it just a very tiny amount. Make sure that this small piece here is operating at its full potential. So to reassemble, we go ahead and take the nut and put it back into its housing. We want to take this long piece, and there's a small black piece right here that's connected to a spring. You want to pull that back as far in there as you can with your index finger as you can. Put the arm into the hole and then snap that down right there. It just falls into place, and then replace your spring. As you can see, the spring has a bent that goes into a straight end and a very bent end, and this small 90-degree bend here goes into a small hole right next to the screw hole, and you want to make sure that clicks into place. Take your flathead screwdriver and just kind of nudge it in there a tiny bit more. Make sure it's completely secured.